I'm Barry Trammell, and I actually like the BCS bowl matchups, if you don't count the Fiesta.
A lot of people around here will, but we're going to talk about the ones not involving Oklahoma, and we're going to wait on that national championship game as well. From the Opopka Studios in Oklahoma City, you're watching the Press Row. I'm Jenni Carlson. Barry, that leaves us 3 bowls to dissect today. The Rose Bowl is the starting bowl game beside the Fiesta Bowl and the BCS lineup. TCU, Wisconsin. This should be a really fun one.
It's a great matchup. I mean, you're talking about a David and Goliath TCU, second straight BCS game, but it's going up, as sort of pushed down the door of the Rose Bowl, which likes to be very exclusionary. So you've got an outsider, you've got an underdog, and TCU going up against a big, rough Wisconsin team that likes to push people around, but TCU plays the tough defense. I think this is going to be a great game. Wisconsin's been on a great roll, scored a bunch of points late in the season. Brett Bielema has done a fantastic job, but down in Fort Worth, Gary Patterson has produced a high-quality program. He's got a quarterback who's won a ton of games in Andy Dalton. I think it's going to be a great, great bowl game. I think Wisconsin's going to win. But if they do, it's not an indictment of TCU.
I'm going with TCU, and the reason I'm picking TCU is because of that defense and what that defense from TCU did on the road against Utah. Now, Utah may not be a sort of a high benchmark you want to throw out there at this point, but I tell you what, going to Salt Lake City and dominating in that game, to me, said a lot about TCU. Obviously, their undefeated record, clearly they are one of those top teams, regardless of automatic qualifier, non-automatic qualifier status. And I think that defense is the reason why. I think they go. I don't think they're going to be overwhelmed by the scenario. Obviously, the Rose Bowl is a huge deal. It's a great atmosphere. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. But I like that defense, and in a big game, I'm going with TCU. Okay, next up, Barry, is the Orange Bowl. Stanford, Virginia Tech. Stanford, a team that almost could have been Oklahoma's opponent in the Fiesta Bowl, but instead, they're going to the Orange. Another fun matchup.
It's a great matchup. Andrew Luck, the Stanford quarterback, probably the #1 pick in the NFL draft, against Bud Foster's Virginia Tech defense. Bud's been Frank Beamer's coordinator for a long time, played tough defense. This is a great matchup. Virginia Tech. I picked Virginia Tech to go to the national title game. That looked like a silly prediction when Virginia Tech was 0-2. But in reality, the Hokies lost to Boise State twice. The late rally by Boise State, and then the next week, Virginia Tech just makes a no-show against James Madison, which was a bad 1AA team. So Virginia Tech has righted itself, won the ACC, playing very well. I think it's a great matchup. Jim Harbaugh has Stanford playing old-fashioned football. Big, tough quarterback who can throw, and then solid along the lines, nothing fancy. Virginia Tech likes to play that way too. I think this is an old-fashioned football game.
You have Virginia Tech winning. I have Stanford winning. Another BCS game that we don't agree, but I think that just says how great these matchups are, that it really kind of is toss-up. I am going with Stanford. Andrew Luck, I tell you what, I knew this guy was good, but it really wasn't until I was putting together my Heisman vote and my Heisman ballot that I really looked at some of the numbers that he has. This guy's even better than I thought. He's really been spectacular this year, and I think Stanford, despite the fact that they're a team that now has emerged on the national scene, they still have that underdog mentality. They still have that us against the world mentality. I think Jim Harbaugh uses that. I think he plays that to perfection. This is going to be a great game because Virginia Tech's super talented, but I do like Stanford in this game. It's just going to be a lot of fun to watch these two teams go at it. Another two teams that'll be fun to watch are the teams in the Sugar Bowl. Ohio State, Arkansas, again, sort of different matchups going against each other. You got the Arkansas offense against Ohio State and their power and the strength that they bring. How do you see this one shaping up?
Well, this is a fascinating matchup. Ohio State, the BCS Blue Bloods, they ranked right there with Oklahoma as the most common BCS competitor of the last 10 years. Ohio State's always in the BCS. Arkansas, despite their sort of lofty status in the SEC as a sort of a traditional, nice college football program, Arkansas has never been in a BCS bowl since the BCS started in the mid-'90s, and Arkansas hasn't been in a major bowl since joining the SEC. Arkansas hasn't won a major bowl since that Lou Holtz Orange Bowl when they routed Oklahoma 31-6 33 years ago. Think about that, folks, when you're thinking about lamenting BCS losses. Arkansas hasn't won a BCS bowl in 33 years. I don't think they're going to win this one. Ohio State is pretty good in BCS bowls unless it's for all the marbles. If it's the national title game, don't bet the Buckeyes. But I think Ohio State will be fired up to play down there in New Orleans. I think it'll be a wild scene. I think the Razorbacks fans will take over New Orleans. But I think Ohio State gets it done.
Lots of red down in New Orleans with those two teams. I'm going with Arkansas in this game. Again, another game that we don't agree on who's going to win, but I see this one as really close. Arkansas only winning by a couple points. I just think that passing offense that Arkansas has, I think that that's going to be something that Ohio State, while really good on both sides of the ball, that's something that you can't prepare for unless you see it a lot or unless you have a similar offense on the other side of the field and you're practicing against them on a regular basis. So I think that Arkansas has an advantage in that way. I just think this is going to be a ton of fun, another great game to watch in the BCS matchups. Barry, I'm not a BCS fan. You're not much of a BCS fan. But when it comes to good matchups, with the exception of the game that everybody in this state's going to be watching, BCS Bowls have got some great matchups this year. Hey, stay with the best coverage team anywhere at newsok.com and every day in the Oklahoma.